Like, we can get rich off of this. Let's just do it. Like, these fans are a bunch of nerds anyway. They're not gonna know the difference. So long as we give them fantasy, they're not gonna care if it's Game of Thrones or Narnia or whatever. And we can just do whatever we want with it, and we'll get rich, and they'll watch it.
When you've decided to film, only to realize you were wearing the braid you slept in and hadn't even brushed your hair. I went through the trouble of putting on some makeup. I even turned on my ring light and put on a ring. Wasn't gonna brush my hair. I thought I could get away with it, but you know what? This is me putting in like that extra little ounce of effort. Hello, my fellow shirelings and denizens of this Middle Earth, or Midon Yerda in Old English. But you're not here for an Old English lesson. Anyway, I wanted to share with you my journey with the Rings of Power thus far, because if you knew or didn't know, I have been invited to several kind of exclusive Amazon Prime events to do with the show, along with several other Tolkien content creators. So I've written an article kind of explaining what I'm sharing in this video, and you're welcome to read it. I'll put a link in the description. But I also wanted to do it in video format because we are a YouTube channel, and why not? So I'll start from the beginning. I remember first hearing that there was going to be an Amazon TV series, something to do with The Lord of the Rings, in 2017. I was visiting my partner in Ireland, and it was a dark and stormy, really windy night, and I remember reading that atmosphere as I read the news, and I was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna get to go back to Middle Earth. And I was really excited. I remember us reporting on it in the 2017 panel at Silicon, I think it was called at the time. I think now it's called Silicon Valley Comic Con, speculating on the deal. And part of why I wanted to film this video is there's a lot of misconceptions going around online, and I have held them and I've learned things. So I wanted to share with you some of what I've learned along the way. So I was first approached by Amazon the end of last year about a potential thing that fizzled out. But when they reached out to me, they're like, oh, well, you're, one half of Happy Hobbit, and we'd love to involve you in some opportunities coming up to have some, press access to the show. Because they're a lot of modern marketing is leaning into content creators to be like small press and to reach their niche audience. So I understood that, and I was like, that's really cool. It makes me feel like validated as a YouTuber, because our show isn't what it used to be. With Feely having her health issues, if you didn't know, she was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos, which is a connective tissue issue. So for her, it's an extreme form of hypermobility that causes pain all the time. So that's really understandably inhibited her ability to film and to take pictures and to participate in a lot of ways. And so we are finding our best ways to work around that so that we can continue to produce it together. But that's why you've probably noticed in the past several years it's kind of been Keeley heavy, which I know isn't as fun, so I'm sorry. But doing our best to keep it going and to find ways to keep doing it together. But that aside, I was contacted by Amazon, and I was highly suspicious because my sister and I, as you probably know, did a trailer reaction to The Desolation of Smaug back in 2013, and it went viral. Peter Jackson shared it, and then he filmed his elven cast watching us, so then they had our reaction, and it became known as Hobbitception. And that brought a lot of positivity, which was wonderful, to the fandom and to the production, and some free press, of course. So I got suspicious. The jaded part of me was like, are they just thinking that we will freak out over anything to do with Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, and that it's like, oh, if we bring Happy Hobbit on board, it's just push play, and they'll go viral, and they'll, give us good press. So I was suspicious of why they were reaching out to us from the beginning, but at the same time, opportunities in life are rare, adventures are wonderful and also somewhat rare, and I'm always game to go on them. So I said, I would love to hear more. And the first part that I participated in was on February 13th, the Super Bowl Sunday. They were debuting the teaser trailer. And the OneRing.net, in coordination with Amazon Prime Video, were hosting a live stream where several of us were going to watch the trailer live and give our reactions. So again, you can see my hesitancy of being like, hope you don't expect me to just be like freaking out, because we freaked out over the desolation of Smaug because we loved the Peter Jackson trilogy, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. We'd seen An Unexpected Journey and we had liked it. And we were excited to see Desolation of Smaug and Glimpse the Dragon. We got to glimpse the dragon in that trailer. Peter Jackson and his team, the filmmakers, had earned our trust. Amazon Prime, wholly new entity, wholly new production. We didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to think. We saw the first teaser trailer, and I was like, and I'm on camera. How do I politely say this? There was nothing bad inherently about the teaser trailer, but it was such a tease that I had no idea what I was looking at or why. If you don't know my background, I have a BA in English, I have a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing, Screenwriting and Fiction. I am a published novelist. I'm an award-winning screenwriter. Workshopping is something I'm very familiar with, having my work workshopped and helping workshop others. In fact, if you ever want to work with me, I do work as a freelance story editor. So if you ever want someone to read what you have and give you some constructive feedback, I'm your gal. But anyway, other than my shameless self-promotion, one thing that you learn when you're giving feedback is it's not helpful at all to say, this sucks, or this is good. You have to be articulate. So the only thing I can really remember articulating when I was giving feedback on that trailer was, I'm not getting the mythic tone that I expect from Tolkien and from Middle-earth. So that was my criticism. Internally, I was bummed that I was not excited. I was hoping to be excited. So that was in February. May comes along. I'm invited to this wonderful opportunity to visit London, England. I've never set foot on English soil. So this was my very first time in England, and it was a wonderful experience. I got to see bits and pieces of London, and they also took us Tolkien content creators. There was a group of about 30 of us. It was a fairly sizable group from all over the world, mind you. I was there from California. There were a couple other Americans there. There were people from Brazil, I think people from South America, people from Germany, people, of course, from the UK, and probably other corners of the world that I'm not remembering at the moment. So they took us on this wonderful kind of outing/field trip to Oxford. And Oxford University is where Tolkien both attended as a student and arguably sparked his love of language, and also where he taught as a professor for years and years and years. So I made a whole separate video called A Tolkien Tour of Oxford that I'll put the link in the description. Feel free to check it out if you haven't already. I don't want to retread too much in that ground, but I will say one thing that I was captivated while there were the trees, because a lot of the mature trees would have been there in Tolkien's time and possibly not changed terribly. And as you well know, trees were a huge source of inspiration for Tolkien, and I just kept looking at them and gazing at them and imagining him strolling beneath their shady canopies and hearing the leaves rustle. And how did this feed his imagination? How did this tickle his mind? And that was a true gift for me. The following day, they treated us to some footage and introduced us to the two showrunners, J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay. Lindsay Weber, who is one of the producers. We got to meet John Howe, Leith McPherson, John Howe, the concept artist, Leith McPherson, the dialect coach, and Ramsey Avery, the production designer. So they all kind of did a Q&A, almost like as if it were a convention. And I saw the footage, once more, I was like, I really want to like this, but I have so little understanding of what's going on that I can't really invest. Imagine taking any TV show or film and just that you haven't seen and plunking you down in front of a scene. Without context, it's pretty meaningless. And I'm a storyteller. My mind runs on story. So without having that, without even having the scene set up for us, I was like, why? I don't get it. So I think a lot of us felt similarly. A lot of us were like, okay, that was cool. There was nothing like inherently wrong with what you showed us, but why? However, after hearing from the showrunners, I did leave with reassurance that the show is in good hands. Patrick and JD are massive Tolkien fans, and Leif McPherson, you may know, worked on The Hobbit. She's a Kiwi. John Howe should need no introduction. He's on the production. They earned his trust. And Ramsey Avery's very respected for his work. So I walked away having a cautious optimism, not from the footage that I saw, weirdly enough, but from hearing these people's true love and passion for the source material, to the point that they opened every day of the production with a quote from Tolkien. They said it was either topical to what they were shooting that day, topical to a world event. They would have the quote read by the production team and cast, of course, and hold a discussion for like 5 to 10 minutes. What does this mean? What is your interpretation? How does this apply to us today? That was their way of keeping Tolkien present and keeping his memory kind of overshadowing everything they did, to remind you this isn't just a fantasy show. This isn't just something we're producing. We need to do honor to his spirit. I can't think of a better way really to start each day of production on a show like that. So I was touched by that. Also, a lot of the cast members are mega Tolkien fans as well. Book fans, I should say. I don't know their stance on the other films, but I know for a fact that a lot of them could almost quote the books to you, which I can't do as many times as I've read them and as much as I love them. I felt a little out of my league. So you can see how I walked away from the trip to London still not sold. Still not feeling like the production had earned my trust completely. That said, I did feel like it was in good hands. I couldn't tell you if it was going to be good or bad, but I was like, you know what, whether it does good or bad, which is highly subjective anyway, but it's not going to be for the nefarious intentions that I was worried about, which was that Amazon looked at Tolkien's work and looked at this IP and was like, we can get
rich off of this. Let's just do it. Like these fans are a bunch of nerds anyway. They're not going to know the difference. So long as we give them fantasy, they're not going to care if it's Game of Thrones or Narnia or whatever, and we can just do whatever we want with it, and we'll get rich, and they'll watch it.
That was my fear, and I think that's a lot of people's fear. So before I talk to you about Comic-Con, I do want to correct something. Amazon never went after this. It was not their idea to create this show. In 2017, or perhaps earlier, that's just when I learned about it, the Tolkien estate, under Christopher Tolkien's stewardship, the son of J.R.R. Tolkien, who has produced posthumously, so many of the texts that we love, like Beren and Luthien, The Fall of Numenor coming out soon, The Children of Húrin. We wouldn't have those if not for Christopher. Christopher made his entire life being the custodian, the gatekeeper, and the sort of translator of his father's work, certainly the editor. And even when his father was alive, he often had that role. So he was still head of the Tolkien estate when this deal was made. The Tolkien estate is actually And that's the family, if you didn't know, the Tolkien family, who owns the rights to everything other than the rights Tolkien sold to The Hobbit and to The Lord of the Rings. So that's why you've seen those films, because he sold the film rights to those. The Tolkien estate actually approached several streaming services such as Netflix and Amazon Prime and asked them, would you be interested in purchasing television rights to something to do with The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, the rights that they'd already sold. Not new material, not the Silmarillion, not the Children of Hurin, not Unfinished Tales, the rights that we already have seen on screen. And I don't know if Netflix said no or if they got in a bidding war with Amazon, but obviously Amazon won out. I believe they bought the television rights for $250 million. So I just think that's important because I was going around thinking Amazon had been like,
oh, this is a cash cow, I want this.
But it's not. I mean, well, it didn't happen that way. The Tolkien estate asked them, do you want this? After the deal was made, about 3 years later, sadly, Christopher Tolkien passed. So other people have the perception that as soon as this guardian of his father's literary work passed, the younger generation was like,
let's just get richer.
I don't think that's true either, because this was all done under Christopher Tolkien's stewardship. Now, it has passed on to his son, Simon Tolkien, who is known to have a love of filmmaking and visual storytelling. Personally, I have no problem with that. Why? Because a book is a book. A film is a film. A TV show is a TV show. These are very different forms of media. I don't understand how people can conflate the idea that turning a beloved property into a film or a TV show is somehow going to diminish the original work, which is a book. They don't detract from each other. Even the worst adaptation, which I am not a fan of the early adaptations of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, the animated ones, the Bakshi ones, like, those terrified me. It was actually Peter Jackson's films that got me interested in Tolkien in the first place and made me pick up the book. So the argument that the more we have out there in other mediums, the less people are going to read the books, or the fewer people are going to read the books, doesn't hold water with me. I don't know what hold water means. Does it leak? It must leak. The theory leaks because I'm living proof of the opposite. I would not have read the books if I didn't have the accessible nature of the films as my intro to the world of Middle-earth. So I just wanted to clear the air on how that went down based on my understanding of the facts. To go back to my journey, I left London with cautious optimism. Still felt like I did not have enough understanding of what the storyline of the show was going to be to form an opinion. Now in July, San Diego Comic-Con International was finally back after 2 years of not having the convention. They did kind of a quasi-convention in, I think, November of last year, but this was the first time it was back in almost full force. And I got to be there because I was a panelist on the OneRing.net's panel where we talked about all the exciting things coming up in the Tolkien world, such as Christopher Tolkien's edited version of The Fall of Numenor, a Gollum video game, a Mines of Moria video game. They all sound super exciting. And of course, the Rings of Power. So I was just absolutely thrilled to be among my people and to be among nerds. The first day, even though everything else I brought was all Lord of the Rings related, like, you know, my ring and everything, the first day I was so excited to wear my Star Trek shirt. And I remember walking through the hotel lobby and some guy walked by, kind of did a double take and went, "Oh, nice," at my shirt. And I was like, I was filled with so much like excitement and joy. I'm like, he stole my Star Trek shirt. And he liked it. To the point that when I was working the booth that night, I had my lanyard. Let me grab my lanyard. I had my lanyard on, and as you can see, it kind of covers anything you've got in that area. And I kept kind of like putting it to the side are like secretly putting it off and setting it aside so that more people could see my Star Trek shirt, to the point that someone else in the booth was like, hey, oh no, this is yours, don't lose it. I'm like, oh, how'd that get there? I didn't intentionally put it there just so that more people would notice my Star Trek shirt. But it was really fun. And being on the panel, of course, was a delight. It was wonderful to see. Probably some of you watching this video were able to attend, but if you weren't, there were probably a couple thousand people in the room, and it's just so exciting to be in person again with my fellow Tolkien fans and fellow geeks in general. It was such a boon to the soul. The Rings of Power was also there, of course, and with several other Tolkien content creators, I was invited to a luncheon with the cast, which was so neat. However, before the luncheon, they collected us all in this kind of mini theater room where they showed us the very first actual trailer for The Rings of Power. If you're following our channel, you'll have seen my sister and I filmed a reaction video to it, which wasn't like a true reaction like the Desolation of Smaug one, because I'd already seen it at Comic-Con, but she hadn't seen it yet. And her response was different than mine. But when I was in that room, full of other Tolkien nerds, and a lot of these people know the lore way better than I do, it was like Hobbitception on steroids. The screams, the shouting, people literally jumping out of their seats and fist punching the air. I do not cry easily. In public, certainly not. I could not hold it in, and I was shedding tears because being in a room filled with that much joy and excitement was so deeply moving. And we've been through some really trying times, not only as a nation, but as a planet. And to feel that unbridled excitement, it's a gift that I'm always going to hold so dear to my heart. And that's why I shed tears. It was in part to do with what I saw on screen. Don't get me wrong. I was excited. It was the first time I felt the mythic tone. It was the first time that I felt a tantalizing hint of what the plot's gonna be. And I did genuinely get excited. I couldn't tell you all the things I saw on screen like a lot of other people could say, oh, I recognize this is probably a reference to that, and that's a reference to that. But I just wish they had filmed it or let the cast secretly watch us. Because one thing I learned through our Desolation of Smaug reaction trailer going viral is that when you are working day in and day out on a film like this, or I can turn it back on me, even me working on one of my novels, it can be very much an insular, muffled activity. You feel like you're creating in a void. Unless I get a review or a letter from a reader, which is pretty rare, unfortunately, I have no idea if my work that I put so much effort into has connected with anyone. And the same for a film. I can't imagine how difficult it must be to put in so much effort and time and energy and then have someone who all they do is like sit down, I'm gonna review this. I feel like being condescending today. And not give appreciation to how much actually goes into it and how much coordination and teamwork. So I know, again, through our trailer going viral, a lot of the cast and crew wanted to tell my sister and I how much of a boon to them that was to be reminded that people are excited over what we're doing. People are looking forward to it. We are bringing joy. So thankfully, the cast, I guess, filtered in to come sit down at the tables where we were having our lunch right at the tail end. So a lot of them said, I heard some like shouts and stuff, and that was really exciting. I was like, oh, I wish you could have been there. So that was something important for me to communicate with the cast members that I did get to speak with. And it is a large cast. Didn't get to talk to everyone, but everyone I did talk to was super sweet, super down to earth, super excited about Tolkien and to meet fans and to make those connections. And that instilled even more faith in me. So at this point in my journey with Rings of Power, I am genuinely excited. And I can genuinely say that I am greatly looking forward to seeing the show once it finally airs. I've not seen it, just to be clear. So I don't know if it's going to be good or bad. I'm not trying to defend something that I haven't seen, but I'm saying at this point, as someone who was skeptical going in, I do feel like they are earning my trust. And other things that I learned along the way that I never knew before is that Jeff Bezos is actually a massive Tolkien fan, and that's why he was so excited by this opportunity for his corporation, or whatever you want to call it, to have access to this material. Another thing I've learned from the showrunners is that yes, they can draw on the appendices in Return of the King, because if you didn't know, the show is set during the Second Age, way before the events of the War of the Ring. And a lot of the Second Age not only is addressed in the Silmarillion and Unfinished Tales, but it's talked about in the appendices. The appendices are like really small. And here's the tricky part. Even though the Tolkien estate said, yeah, you can use that, they did not like it if a plotline smelled like anything to do with the Silmarillion. So me and the One Ring, our original speculation was, hey, if it's mentioned in the appendices, they can probably use that story from the Silmarillion. Turns out that's not the case. So, yes, people are criticizing the production for essentially making up storylines and making up characters. But based on the terms set forth by the Tolkien estate, they were forced into that position. So they have to come up with storylines that fill the gaps, that bridge the gaps, but hopefully still feel completely authentic to the source material. Try to ensure that fidelity, they gave Simon Tolkien a seat at the table. So personally, I don't know what more they could be doing to ensure fidelity to Tolkien. They've hired people who live and breathe this stuff, from the cast to the producers to the writers. They have the family involved in the production. They're opening each day of shooting discussing Tolkien. So again, whether the show is good or bad, it's not going to be from a lack of pure intentions. And in fact, Patrick McKay told me in a brief conversation we had, he said, we had such creative freedom that if the show does well, I'm glad that we did a good job. If it does bad, that's on us too. So I liked that level of accountability. I'm like, okay, fair enough. So the conclusion I came to was that most of what Amazon is facing is fighting against their own reputation and the public perception of their brand. I don't want to get into the deep discussion of our inherent skepticism of massive corporations. I'll just say it's there. We all know it's there. But if you heard all of the information I just gave you, and it was from a indie film studio out of New Zealand, Colorado, the UK, personally, I would be a lot more open-minded. I'd be like, wow, I'm glad that they have all this money to try to do the story justice. I'm really glad that they've brought the family on board, that they've hired people who are intensely passionate about the source material and greatly, very talented folks. If you remove the name Amazon, for me, changes my point of view. So I encourage you to engage with that thought experiment and be like, wait a minute, how much of this is actually my bias against this company who personally I have kind of a love-hate relationship with? And what does that say about not only the state of affairs in the world, but also what's actually going on? The other thing is, I think that the marketing has not truly conveyed the fidelity to the source material that I have seen. So, that I have seen amongst the production. Those are kind of big issues. Fighting against your own brand, don't know what to do about that. I'm not a marketing person. But the actual marketing not necessarily gifting us something of substance up to now that we can actually be like, all right, sounds good. At the luncheon, I was introduced to two people, and they're like, what did you think? And I said, look, I wasn't excited until now. Now I'm excited. And I'm like, why couldn't marketing have led with that trailer? It would have saved us so much grief. And they're like, I'm like, so you guys work for Amazon? They're like, yeah, we're marketing. I was like, oh. The lunch was really nice. But I mean, it was honest feedback. So again, I'm not here to defend a show I've not even seen. Just wanted to share what I've learned along the way on this wonderful adventure I've been on. And form your own opinion, as you are more than welcome to do. And hopefully, you know, I want it to do well because I want it to represent Tolkien well. And I'm looking forward to seeing it on September 2nd. And for me, kind of goes along with our tone of our channel. We're called Happy Hobbit. Being optimistic and being positive, don't get me wrong, it is so much work. It is so much easier to be negative and to be pessimistic, and I'm not saying that that does not happen to me in life. I'm not saying that I don't still have a healthy level of potential criticism for this production or for what we're going to see. I'm not blinded by them giving me some fancy little carrots and letting me talk to some actors. That's wonderful, and I'm very appreciative of that because, again, opportunities in life are rare, and so are adventures, and I will take them. However, when it comes down to it, it's for all of us to decide, and we may have differing opinions, and that's fine. But my message is, if you don't like the show or are skeptical, try not to go, how do I put this? Try not to hurt the people who are. You're free to express your opinion, of course, but joy is rare. And we've been through such hard times. And for the people who are feeling hopeful and excited and joyous, allow them that. Just say, I don't agree, but move on. I think it's really easy in times of stress to take your feelings out on other people and to try to bring other people down. And I'm just trying to encourage, in general in life, self-awareness of that behavior. Optimism is a choice, and as hard as it is, I choose to go through life as joyfully as possible, and you have the same choice. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, here I am trying to be a real YouTuber. If you have, you can subscribe and hit the bell thing. That's what I hear people telling me to do when I'm watching a video. So you can do that. You can also follow us on social media, Happy Hobbit. And if you're interested in more about like me and what I do and all my creative endeavors, I've got an Etsy shop where I sell candles and soap and sign autographed books. Obviously I've got lots of novels, fantasy novels. Yes, I am a story editor. I'm available to work on your project with you and help you bring your vision to life. And I've got my own YouTube channel called just KM Rice. I do all my stuff under my pen name, KM Rice, which I think has just made things exceedingly confusing because my real name's Kelly, and then here I'm Keeley, and then on the page I'm KM Rice. I don't expect people to be able to keep up, and I kind of regret that, but I didn't foresee all this happening when I first published under that pen name. But thank you for your time. Feel free to find me on social media under KM Rice as well. I'll put all the links down below. I also have a Patreon where you get all kinds of really fun stuff. Total like nature inspired community there, where of course there's a lot of Tolkien crossover, because how could there not be? And that's like the hugest reason of why I love Tolkien, is his love of the natural world and his environmentalism and trees and horses and animals and how elves live with nature. And alright, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video has left you a happy hobbit and with a little bit more knowledge, maybe, going forward. Alright. Take care and namarie. I have to remember to breathe when I'm filming. Anyone else who films these videos, do you find that you're like taking really weirdly shallow breaths? What is the deal with that? Anyway, here's my badge. Isn't that cool? I don't know what that sword is. It's in the new trailer, and I've heard different guesses. To me, that looks like a Witch King sword, but the 9 didn't exist yet because they hadn't created the rings yet. Is it Sauron's sword? I don't know. Feel free to speculate in the comments. You do get to glimpse it being formed in a child's hands in the trailer. So, hopefully that wasn't too bad.